Once a frontman for Britpop band Blur, then the musical brains behind the band Gorillaz, the career of singer-songwriter Damon Albarn has seen him collaborate with musicians around the globe, from Africa to China. Now, as the UK readies itself for the Olympic Games and the Queen's Diamond Jubilee, he's turned to London, his hometown, for inspiration to write a very English opera. Steve Smith has been to meet him.
I'm fascinated by all the standing stones. I didn't have a religious upbringing at all, but I always wanted to go into churches and that kind of space. There's something about that cusp between the pagan England and the early Christians. I always imagined that world. It seems like a really scary but magical place.
Damon Albarn is best known as the frontman of Britpop favourites Blur and co-creator of the cartoon band The Gorillaz. But in this year of Jubilee and Olympics, he's channeling his own very personal and slightly archaic sense of what his country means to him.
Oh, the soulless dance upon the English dew.
Is that pagan England still
Yeah, it's
here?
everywhere. It's everywhere. I think it's very much still there with us. And it's in the cities as well. You know, when a fox stares at me, sort of at dusk or first thing in the morning, and it's the same thing. When I hear a blackbird, it's the same thing. That's what magic is about, tuning yourself into sort of aspects of our subconscious.
Charge the anti-spirit down. Return it now to the ground.
For the Cultural Olympiad, Albarn is contributing an opera he's written about the life of Dr. Dee, an extraordinary figure at the court of Elizabeth I. Dee was a scientist and an alchemist, an adept of algebra and angels alike.
He also had this extraordinary sort of belief that he could combine all these disciplines and somehow work for the state, for Queen Elizabeth. So in many ways, he embodied the Elizabethan idea.
Plus the square on AE is equal to the sum of the squares on BA and AE.
There was this incredible struggle during that period between the past and superstition and these new ideas, the heliocentric solar system, advances in medicine. Everything was right on the cusp of becoming science. And John Dee was really, really at the epicenter of that.
The lazy journalistic cliché about Albarn, which we naturally eschew, dear viewer, is that he's a bit of a Renaissance man himself, as comfortable with electric guitars as he is with, say, a dirty great church bell. What possessed you to get your own bells made?
I was born in the adjacent hospital, so these are essentially bow bells. So there was something there, a connection with that. And this one's a particularly important bell because it's D.
Dr. D.
Dr. D. And Dr. D as a musical piece is essentially in D.
Dr. D might have turned out a bit like this instead, a cartoon, like Albarn's animated franchise Gorillaz. The original idea was to come up with a comic book hero who might represent Englishness.
Remember that it's all in your head.
It's just funny how things turn out. You know, it could have been equally about Superman.
Yes. We don't have any superheroes, do we, in this country? They're all kind of
No, that's an American. It's kind
thing.
of an American idea, really.
Yeah, we've got Captain Birdseye, but off the top of my head, I can't think of...
We do have. I mean, King Arthur and Robin Hood, they're sort of...
That's true.
They're superheroes.
Robin Hood, now, that could be a musical.
Robin Hood the musical.
What do you think? See if Tim Rice is available.
I'm open to the idea.
All the apple carts up from Silbury Hill, higher until heaven reveal.
A song inspired by one Elizabethan age, which will be performed in a gala year for another. Does Albarn's own heart of oak burst with pride at the thought of the Jubilee? Or not so much? You can't really separate the story of England from the kings and queens. Does that leave you feeling, dare I say it, vaguely monarchist, or...?
No.
No.
I'm not monarchist.
So it could all have happened without them, and...
I'm fascinated in our history, and each reign is a frame. Sounds like a lyric.
Yeah. Shall I make a
Not
note
a
of that?
great lyric, but you can't really say you like or dislike the royal family because you don't know them. They're not... I don't know them. There's very little chance I will ever have access to them, or that I would necessarily want access to.
You might be offered a gong.
Well, that's a silly thing, and I certainly wouldn't be interested in anything like that. It's not really my bag, my cup of tea, in fact.
Earlier this year, Blur were accused of upstaging the singer Adele at the Brit Awards, which were shown live on TV. Not my fault, Gov, says Albarn. Blame the schedulers and their commercial breaks.
We were standing behind a curtain just waiting for it to lift, and then we'd get on with it. I mean, I'd have been happy to wait another 10 minutes. I'm sick of adverts. It's horrible, and it's all this time that's kind of wasted with adverts. We waste an awful lot of our lives watching adverts. All of us.
You'd never make an advert then?
Oh, I'm as complicit in it as anybody else, but I mean, it doesn't mean that I necessarily like it.
Blur will also be involved with the Olympics, bringing the curtain down at a concert in London. Is it going to be the final outing for the four young heroes?
I don't know. I mean, you know, we've got a lot of shared history. We still get on very well. It's still a magical experience.
Cast the barley.
I don't know what's round the corner. My mum taught me that.
How did she teach you that? That
She
was
said,
just her philosophy.
She said, Damon, you never know what's round the corner.
And she was right.
And she was absolutely right. We'll sing.
Damon Albarn speaking to Steve Smith now.